Yeah, 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 yeah. Good morning, and welcome to the What's the Temp podcast. My name is Betina, and I am coming in hot.
And I'm Jen, and I'm checking in so I don't check out.
Love it. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. I love it. Today's episode is called Failure Resume, which is an interesting change from what we've done in the recent past. So this should be very exciting, as they all are to me. Let me just note that I recognize. But Jen, let's go into our temp check this morning. Our temp check is a resilience temperature. What is your resilience temperature?
I'm really just laughing so much right now because of the fact that we just decided upon this episode topic literally 2 minutes ago. So we're like, okay, what's the topic? Okay, let's pick this one. And then 2 minutes later, we're like, record.
Yeah, because we're not playing.
No, but then now you're just hitting me with this surprise temp check. Ooh, resilience. So I'm going to start by saying it's a high temp. It is, I would say it's even high 80s maybe. It's humid. I'm in the thick of it. Yeah, I'm in the thick of it. It's whenever I have setbacks recently, I feel that I have become a person that can be okay. Like I was saying, I can be okay when I'm not okay, but also I have that hope that I will come out on top. And I think that hope and that's my form of faith that kind of keeps me in a positive thinking mentality. So I've had frustrations lately. I haven't had anything major coming my way as of late, but whenever there are setbacks, whether it's in my relationship or just, with where I am in my personal progress, I tend to look on the sunny side of things. And it's nice to be able to say that because I really feel like I have been so cynical and negative for my entire life. So it just gives me so much pleasure to know that I've made a decision to be a different way and then become that,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm like boundlessly optimistic now. And it was cool because I actually just came from having breakfast. I just went and had breakfast with my guitar player who lives in LA. And he's that type of person too. He was the one I was telling him that I had told a story of him on the podcast where we were hiking.
Yeah.
And he was looking around and I said, the word that would describe you is if there was the word entitlement, but with a positive connotation, that would be you. And he thought that was so funny because it's true. It's like he goes around like he owns this mountain or he owns this room. And when I first heard that expression, like you own the room, I was like, yes, that sounds good. That sounds really, really good. So that's how I try to look at things. I try to look at things like I'm strong, and when things happen, because things do happen, and when things happen, I will find a way to navigate that. And I will keep going, and I will try to come into a place of acceptance of what it is, but also try to find a way to look at it. That's always trying to find the good side of things. I was just thinking when I was driving home that if we could all try to just look at what's good in our life, because we all have different good things in our life. I could so easily say, well, I'm coming back to my house and I'm looking at just like how close my neighbors are and how I always feel like they're like crowding in on me and how I'm looking directly into my neighbor's window. But then I was driving back from Summit and I was thinking, God, these houses are close together. They're so much closer than my house. And this one house is on this busy street with this crazy loud traffic. So just not even 20 minutes ago, I know, I was just feeling so grateful that I don't live on a street where like big trucks are driving by all the time, because that's maddening. And my apartment in Los Angeles was just like that. It was just motorcycles gunning it day in, day out. There's so much traffic and I lived on a main street. So it just brought me right back to the fact that how you look at things is everything. I could look at everything colored negative, or I could look at everything colored with the positive, and I'm going to choose the latter. So that's my definition of resilience today. What about you? What's your resilience temp check?
My resilience temp check is, I'm going to also go for weather. And that would be 75 degrees today. You know, my
I like
favorite
that.
weather temp is 72.
Okay.
So it's a little bit warmer than my normal. But the reason it's not hot, gunning hot, burning hot is because I'm sick and tired of resilience, girl.
Yeah, you've
I'm
had to
in
have a lot of it.
Girl, listen. I am in this place where we've talked so many times about me having to revamp myself or reinvent myself or modify something. And I am so ready to become in this season that while I feel like I could make it through anything, that's what resilience is for me, your ability to withstand.
Mhm.
So I feel like I could make it through anything because I've overcome a lot. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm ready to kick back and enjoy. When I talk about becoming, this is what I mean, like setting a temperature and then doing everything that I can for my life, setting a temperature for my life, and then doing everything that I can to live around that temperature. And when the temp dips too low, what can I do to get back to that set point, as you've mentioned? Or if it gets too high, what do I have to do to get back to that average temperature? Um,
Mm.
and that is to me where my real resilience temp is. Like, I want to be a little warm. I still want to be able to withstand anything, but I don't want to go out in the world saying, "What can I conquer today?" No,
Mm.
not in this season. In this season, I want to become comfortable with being.
Yeah, you've been saying that a lot lately.
Yep, and I'm going to figure out what that temperature is and sit right there.
There was this class, I didn't take it in college, but for some reason I never forgot its title. It was called Being and Becoming Human.
Mhm.
And you keep saying being and you keep saying becoming. And it's been making me think about how I think to me they're actually synonymous
Mhm.
because they are slightly different terms, but my mode of being is a constant becoming. But it's not an effortful becoming. I think sometimes your becoming, to me, it seems exhausting. The way that you
Mhm.
exert and the way that you work and the way that you conquer and you're very busy and you're always active. And
Mhm.
even though I do have that drive, well, no, that is not
Mm.
true. I do not have. This is what keeps happening on this podcast is I'll actually be editing something and I'll be like, that is not true, Jen. Like, I'll say
Hilarious.
something and then it's not true. It's like the intention of it is true. So if there was something like objective truth, it wouldn't be objectively true, but usually there's some piece of it that's true. So in this sense, the drive, I was just talking to my coworker, she's like my favorite person at the company. She was talking about how she says she always feels like she needs to be productive and she thinks that she just got into that habit because of work and that she has so much trouble resting and that even when she's at home she feels like she should be doing something for the house and that she can't rest. And I was just like, yes, that is so incredibly true. Learning to rest is something that is exceedingly difficult because what I mean by I have drive is I don't have that level of drive that you have, but I have this persistent, it's almost like it's either a low grade anxiety that I'm not aware of where I feel like I have to be busy all the time or else I don't know what
Mm.
to do with myself, or it's just maybe it's just an underlying feeling that I have to earn rest, that I have to have
Mm.
done all the things that are within my power before I can actually rest. And so, and anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. What I was going to say is that when it comes to personal development, I am comfortable with both being where I am, recognizing what my shortcomings are, and also wanting to work on things about myself, but also knowing that I'm also in a constant act of becoming, because the journey never ends and I don't want it to. So I hope the things that I'm working on now aren't the same things I'm working on next year.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I'm okay with where I am, but I'm also really excited to find new things to work on and to find new things to pursue. And so just as a small example of that, I had said a couple weeks ago that I bought these little soft hand weights that strap onto your hand. And I wanted to just in the morning spend 10 to 20 minutes doing free movement with those weights. And I did. And I've been doing it. So for the past week or so, I know. So for the past week or so, I've just been going downstairs first thing in the morning with my coffee and I just do free movement. So I just, I'll do downward dog and then I'll do a malasana squat and then I'll just do like whatever I feel inspired to do, warrior 2, and then maybe I'll just lay there and stretch for a while. And so
you're not going to do a chaturanga in your home?
No, don't do chaturanga. Sorry. You kidding me? If I'm not going to do it with all the peer pressure of everyone around me in a class of 50 doing it, I'm certainly not doing it within the privacy of my own home. But I've been doing it and that's my new becoming. So my being is my becoming. And I love that you've been saying being and becoming so much because it's been putting me on this trajectory of just reflecting on how happy I am that I will never be perfect. My whole life used to be about being perfect. And now I'm just so grateful to not be perfect, to always be improving, but in like a low-key way, like a slow train.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah. So I love that you've been talking about that.
And on that same note, yesterday I spent time with a really close friend of mine who's amazing. And as we were talking, she explained some things from the state of what we're going through that I'm going through only because she's probably, 5 or 6 years older than me. And so she's a little bit more experienced, like as far as, just life. And so she was explaining some things, some changes that's been happening in her life. But when she brought it back to the body and she said, you know what, I think what was going on with me now in hindsight is when you're perimenopausal, and your body, so many changes are happening inside of your body. It's almost as if how she described it, I would never use this wording, but how she described it is like the universe knew I needed rest.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like me, very much always achieving and doing and building and grinding. But in hers is in a more love-centered way. Mine is for legacy. So it's like, oh, let me achieve this thing and let me achieve that amazing, ginormous thing. And it's not saying that I'm going to quit on my life. It's just that I want to do it in a way that allows me to live at the same time, allows me to honor what's happening in my body, and allows me to enjoy the ride, considering we're coming off of a recent death of someone that I love. Like, I don't want to be the person that gets to the end of my life and I look around and say, but I didn't enjoy anything, So that's where I am. When I talk about becoming, I've always had a dream of traveling internationally with family. But I've done some international travel by myself or with, my partner, but not with family, And so I'm starting to fulfill on that. My daughters and I booked a cruise. And so it's like, how it is when you have something on the books, it makes everything that you're doing in the meantime tolerable.
Remember, something to love, something to do, and something to look forward to.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know what I want? I want that. You remember how back in the day people used to have quotes, but they would have it like in a knitted or like in a threaded, like a needlepoint frame?
Yes, on a pillow.
Wouldn't that be great to have on a pillow? Just as a consistent reminder. I think that's something I need to do. And I know you can find that on Etsy.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yes, I need that in my face. That I need in my face.
In my face.
Moving to the Midwest, the thing that I've been explaining to people about why I love it so much is the undercurrent. There's an undercurrent of peace in Indiana for me that
Mm.
was not present in my life in Los
Yes.
Angeles. And so I'm starting to think about the undercurrent of things. And what I feel today is that I was productive and even busy. I think busy has a negative connotation sometimes. So I like to say productive, but I was productive and even busy but with the undercurrent of not enough.
Hmm.
And now I want to be okay with that I'm enough. I have enough, all these things that I want there to be an undercurrent of enough in my life. And that is what will allow me to be comfortable with being. And then that, of course,
Yeah.
takes me to the Bible with
Yeah.
all we're supposed to do is be, do, and have. You know what I mean? It's not a whole lot. It's that simple. Be, do, have. You know? And
Love it.
so but that's my temp check. That's what I feel is the way to deal with my personal resilience temperature. So if it's okay, I'd like to go into our backstory this morning, which is greatest failures
Yes.
that led to growth. Greatest
So I'm
failures,
excited.
greatest failures that led to growth. So let's go. Shoot for it.
Okay, so basically, when I saw the title of this episode, which was a while ago, I just saw the title and I was like, oh man, my first thought is that this is going to sound like I'm being so hard on myself, but I promise you I'm not. But I do feel like, in a certain way, my entire life has been a failure.
Me too.
But let me clarify what I mean by that. So, because I think it's going to be the opposite. It's very funny to me that you're saying me too, but not funny, but it's a little bit surprising to me. So that's why I can't
Mm-hmm.
wait to hear what you're going to say. But because we're opposites in this way, but whereas I feel that you are someone who has a really boundless view of what you can achieve and a really open-ended way of looking at what you're capable of, I
Mm-hmm.
have been so locked in by my own fear of really putting myself out there in any way that the reason why I say I feel like my whole life was a failure is because I feel that I've always played it safe.
Mm-hmm.
Always. So if you go back to my earliest sort of formative years, I was so locked in by trying to be such a good student and trying to be good at everything I did and trying to be perceived as like trying to always have external validation. So being good at sports and being good at dance and just basically just wanting someone to just put the stamp of approval on me so that I could be okay. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel okay. And then in high school, because I was taking a lot of honors classes and I was just really overscheduled and there was a huge amount of pressure to get into a good college and blah, 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 blah. I just felt so burned out that when I got to college, I just gave up. I was just like,
Mm.
I'm done with this. I don't want to live this way. This is
Mhm.
exhausting. And it's not, it's just such a system of diminishing returns because I'm killing myself. And
Yeah.
it's so unfortunate that it happened that way because college should have been the place where I found some inherent love of learning. But I had
Yeah.
never learned to just learn for the love of learning. It was always based on this system of getting a grade. So everything I did was just to basically ingest huge amounts of information, memorize them, and then regurgitate them onto the test the
Yes.
next day, and then move along. So I never learned anything. It was just like, here's this biology chunk, and now here's this math chunk. And then here's this literature chunk, and everything was in its own little bucket. And then I got to college, and all of a sudden, everything, the whole world opened up, and everything became interdisciplinary. So now it was like
Mhm.
everything isn't in these false compartments. Now everything is a part of everything else. So now history is hand in hand with science, and history and politics are inextricably linked. And, and everything all of a sudden was in the same bucket. But I
Mhm.
couldn't enjoy it because I had already just decided this world is just too much and I am checking out. I'm done. So at the tender age of 18, I was already just like, I don't want to exert myself anymore. And that's why I think I have such a resentment against the public school system, because it feels like they told me that I have to be good at everything. So I have to be good at math and science and the arts and whatever. And then meanwhile, you're setting me up for failure, because what's going to happen when I become an adult is I'm going to have to do the same GD thing every single day for 8 to 10 to 12 hours. So why didn't you just be honest with me in the first place and say, hey, find something you love, or if not love, can tolerate doing over and over and over again every day until you're 65? Why didn't you just tell me that?
And become masterful at that.
Yeah, why'd you have me killing myself like some type of performance monkey trying to be good at math and science when I don't need both and, you know?
Yeah.
I never used science a day in my life. Math, I have a job. My job is I'm a director of finance somewhere. I do math every day, all day. Guess what type of math I do? Addition, multiplication. It's all on a calculator. Like, get out of here with that. They made me feel like if I don't know geometry, I'm going to be a failure at life.
Or me, trigonometry and calculus.
And I internalized that. I actually do use algebra a little bit, but, you know, it's just the amount of pressure that I felt to be perfect ended up debilitating me for the rest of my life. Because when you're perfect, what you are is you're just full of fear all the time. And then that was me. So what that translated into is,
Wait,
and
the
this
fear
is also,
that someone's going to find out how imperfect you actually are?
well, I don't like, so that's imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, I think in a way I maybe thought I really was perfect. Like I was not in terms of my worth. I had low self-worth, but in the sense that I did actually do quite a few things well, but it still wasn't making me feel good enough. So that was the problem. I don't know if I don't know if it was exactly imposter syndrome, because I think imposter syndrome is when your people are recognizing that you're good at something, but you don't think you're good enough. For me, it was just like I was just trying to get the validation, but it almost felt like no one was giving it to me. Within the home, it felt like it was expected. So it's like, of course you're going to get straight A's. There's no congratulations for that. That's what you do.
That's what you're supposed to do.
That's what you do. Should you fall short of that at all, then we'll come and talk to you. What happened here? But this is the expectation. This is the bar. And I don't know whether that was necessarily coming from my parents or just coming from me. That's always been unclear, because you can't really split that out when you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
But I read this autobiography recently of Molly Shannon from SNL, and it was so insanely good. It was such a surprise, because it was just a book I picked up at the library at random, and it ended up being the best book ever. And her dad was this really eccentric guy who would always just tell her to stay home from school so she could hang out with him and stuff. So therefore she became this great student, because her dad was always like, just skip school, it doesn't matter. And then he basically said the most important thing in life, he said, is knowing how to make a buck, being curious, knowing how to talk to people. And he listed a bunch of things. And when I read that, I was like, yes, exactly. Life is who you know, how hard you work, learning to make a buck, being curious about other people, making connections. That's what life is about. Life is not about being good at math and science and XYZ, because what that does is it if you don't know how to socialize, and if you don't know how to play nice in the sandbox, so to speak, you don't get ahead.
Then you being good at those other things will never matter.
Nobody's coming to knock down your door.
Yeah.
You know, more important would be to have charisma and to have the get up and go. But I didn't have the get up and go because I was paralyzed with fear. So I was over here in my corner doing my homework and trying to be perfect, and nobody was coming to knock down my door. Every single person who makes twice as much money as me was someone who was an average student in school, who went to an average college. I went to a top 10 college, and it got me absolutely nowhere. So I don't recommend that. And I'm going to discourage my children from buying too much into the public school system, because I just don't think that that is how life works. So what that translated to me, I know this is not everybody's experience. This is just my experience. But since I didn't go to a pre-professional school, I didn't go to become a lawyer or become a doctor or do something that had a very straightforward path, I just foundered. So once I got out of college, I I didn't have the experience in college of just being open and being a sponge and learning. I remember my uncle one time, he told me, he's like, just take a little bit of everything. Take an astronomy course. Take this, take this. This is the time of your life. But for me, that time of my life was just that I was incredibly lost and depressed. And that's when I fell into drugs pretty heavy. And it was just more about how can I socialize? Who can I sleep with? How can I get a thrill? I didn't have my head on straight and I didn't have my feet on the ground, so it just was such a waste. And I feel so sad that I didn't at least take a gap year in between or something and just figure out the value of the dollar, like figure out that you are not ever going to be some Renaissance woman. You're not going to be some multi-talented, multidisciplinary thing. So what ended up happening is I just sort of struggled after college. I just never really found my way for so many years. And I also just never really put myself out there because I always was just afraid of failing and afraid of not being perfect and afraid of really pursuing something and then failing. So that fear of failure just kept me back my whole entire life. And so also I think that there is some part of me that's just not especially career oriented. Like when people say, oh, I have a career, I want a career, I'm just like, not really. That's just not for me. I have always been a huge work-life balance, like find something that pays the bills, something that's not all-consuming. But, even saying that, I always also do wonder, what if I had really found something I love? Like some people love what they do. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. That's how I was with dentistry, honey. And that's actually how I am with consulting and the work that I do now. I love it.
Yeah, I've loved things I do, but only just because I learned to love it. I just wonder sometimes because I always wanted to do something artistic. So again, I was just at lunch with the guitar player from my band. He works as a professional cinematographer, and he was just telling me about all of our friends who still live in LA. So I used to live in LA, and all of our friends worked in the film industry, and they're all still out there and they're just making it work. But even when he's like, AI is taking over the film industry right now, and that's such a huge concern. He just told me a commercial that would have normally been hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million to make that commercial was done with completely AI for $2,000 and shown during the NBA finals, and nobody knew the difference. So how terrifying is that to anybody who works in the film industry? Yeah. So he's a person who really navigates the world just in a way that he looks at everything like it's an opportunity, and he's incredibly good-natured and charismatic and multi-talented. Mm-hmm. He went to the #1 liberal arts school in the country and is an incredible guitar player. He kills me. If I wanted to be jealous of somebody, I would be jealous of him because he came home. I will just never forget this. I was at his apartment one day in LA, different apartment than the one we lived in together, and he came home from a 12-hour film shoot, or 14-hour film shoot, something exhausting and way more hours than I would ever work in a day. And he comes home and he's like, man, I am so tired. And he crashes onto his couch and then just as an afterthought, picks up his electric guitar and rips out the most incredible guitar solo you've ever heard in your life. And then is like, man, I'm beat. Let me go take a nap. I was like, I hate you.
But you see what I mean about that being, because it's like when you're in tune with yourself on the deepest levels, you can produce on the highest levels. Why? I just
because it's not effortful. It's not effortful for him. He's going moment to moment.
Yep.
Yeah, he's incredibly tired, and he will also rip out the most incredible guitar solo you've ever heard because they're not mutually exclusive. Whereas for me, I would be in such a state of depletion because I just always feel like I've been operating from a place of lack and a place of fear. And so just I always wished I could be a musician. And that's why my conversation with him this morning really resonated with me, because some of the people we knew in LA are still making it as a writer, and they don't even know where their next job is coming from, but they're making it work, or they're teaching on the set, or they're working at, doing whatever, but everything is so unknown. And I think, first of all, because I'm so scared, or was so scared all the time, I could never do something where I wouldn't know where my next meal was coming from. That sounds like so much pressure. And I have too much fear to face pressure because I never had enough faith in myself that I could withstand anything. So I guess going back to resilience temperature, I never had faith in myself that I could withstand. And I don't know if that's because I was always prone to depression and anxiety or what, but I just always played it safe. I always got whatever job was on Craigslist, whatever job was offered to me. I always was romantically only interested in who was interested in me. And as a result, I got taken for a ride by my own life, kind of in a way. I do wonder sometimes what it might have been like if I said, no, I love this, and so I'm going to try to make it work like this, but I'm going to take a risk. So in summary, my fear, my depression, my anxiety, my feeling of lostness, and just the trajectory of my life. I don't regret the way my life went because it has enabled me to be the person that I am today. And today, I love the person I am. I've redefined success for myself. Success for me now is peace of mind. Success for me now is my relationships. Success for me now is my home, my family. It's the work I've done on myself. It's who I've become. It's the fact that I chose to change and did so. So I feel so powerful. Like I would never take back a thing. But I wonder sometimes, what would life look like if you were not so risk averse, if you were not so full of fear? My whole life has been a failure in conventional terms. But now, look at us now. I was just telling Dan this morning, I feel the most creatively fulfilled I've ever felt in my life.
Right?
I'm freaking crushing it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, maybe I don't have the most glamorous job in the world, but I set my own bar and exceeded that. And I continue to do so on a day-to-day basis. So that's my failure resume. It is full of failures of the risks I never took.
Okay. I love that it had a bright side of growth, but at the same time, the risks I never took. One of the things, just for my failures in life that resulted in growth, mine was quite the opposite.
Yes. This is what I've been waiting for.
So what I agree with is that my life has been a total failure.
Of risks taken.
Of risks taken.
Tell us about it.
Of risks taken. And I've always been told, so my mom has this interesting phrase. She was afraid of everything. And I think because she was afraid of everything, I was afraid of nothing.
You got to be opposite of your mom.
I was afraid of nothing. And she used to always ask me from even today, she's like, you weren't scared? You're not scared? That doesn't scare you? Those are her favorite things because when I tell her, oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I did this. Oh, I went here. And she's
You're
like,
fearless.
You weren't scared, And I'm like, of what? But the other side of that is, as a result, I guess because I think the thing that was missing for me and the reason I was so risk averse was because I was willing to try these things. I'm willing to try it.
You were not risk averse though.
I mean, I was not.
Whatever
not
the
risk
opposite
averse.
of risk. Yeah.
So, but the thing is, when we talk about it, it was like I was willing to try it because I had to. I was willing to get a career because I had to. I didn't have a choice. And I didn't have time because I was a teenage mom. I didn't have time to go to college and learn a whole lot of different things. I needed to learn one thing that I could master and that was going to allow me to raise these children and get them to where they needed to go in life. And that was dentistry.
Right.
Dentistry has been good to me. But I also wasn't that person that could go into dentistry and just get a job and just sit right there. Nope. I had to take courses at UCLA. I had to take courses at USC. I was always the one that was linked up with different leaders in the industry that opened doors for me to be in places that my little butt with no education and no title, I had like the certification that I needed. And then taking those additional additional courses, got me additional certifications, but it was being in rooms with the masters in the field and understanding things on a deeper level that they knew and operated in on a daily basis. And that made me better at my job because when I spoke with a dentist, I spoke his language. I didn't only speak from the standpoint of the technical side. I understood what he needed to see. And then I had to figure out in my mind how to provide that. I had to understand what it meant to violate the biological width of a tooth, right? And dental technicians did not speak that language, but doctors spoke that language. And I mean the higher end doctors, not your basic run of the mill storefront dentist. You know what I mean? And so it was so interesting to be that person that was I always created a different space for myself. And that's in my family, in my career, in my life, even in my business. I don't fit in any one box. I never have. And my friend that I hung out with yesterday said the same thing about me. She said, stop saying you're not creative. She said, I don't see anyone that creates on a higher level than you. She said, you've said that since I've known you that you're not creative. She said, you are creative. She said, you're both. You're both. Don't say that anymore about yourself. You know what I mean? She said, when I met you, when you invited me into your life, it was because you created total you, and that was amazing. And then since then, I've seen you create so many other creative things, and you're not one or the other, you're both. And we've been saying that a lot, but I'm starting to realize how deep that sentiment really goes in my life. You know what I mean? The both and idea, and so it's it's really highlighting areas where I talk about having limiting beliefs, and that limiting beliefs only comes from the actual failures that I experienced, right? Like I tried it, I failed at it. It didn't kill me. I didn't die, but that failure kicked my butt. Does that make sense? And so while it was like, instead of it chipping away at my desire to consistently go out and try new things that were big and bold and brash, what it did though on the inside. So I didn't wear the scars on the outside. I wore my scars on the inside. And I felt like little by little, I made other mistakes because I trusted myself a little less, even though to other people on the outside looking in, I'm a total superhero.
But you
Right?
trusted yourself a little less?
I trusted myself a little less because of the failures that came with
Oh.
the boldness or the drive to go out and try it. So when it failed, it was like, so I'll use my marriage as an example. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. You know what I mean? I've already invested 8 years of my life into this thing. I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? And then on the hindsight of it, it's like, do I trust myself with another relationship? Do I trust myself to choose another life partner? Am I going to make another? Because it wasn't like I was a 20-something kid. I got married at an older age, you know?
Yeah.
And so then so I didn't wear my scars on the outside. A lot of people wear their scars on the outside where other people can see it, right? I feel like what you described kind of cultivated a little bit of fear that other people could kind of see for your life. Make sense? I feel like my fake superhero cape hid my scars. My scars were internal. And even though I talked a big game, and I also showed a big game because I'm constantly doing the just the things that are outside of the norm that are big and brash and whatever. It's like there's still this failure resume. There's still a failure resume in the background that makes me say, oh, should I do this again? Should I try this? Am I really equipped? Am I really her? Can I really do this? And so when it's successful, I'm surprised too. I'm surprised too. I really want to be in that place where it's like, it happens kind of like you speak of with Dan, where it's like it happens and he's not surprised that that amazing solo was as amazing as it was, because why wouldn't it be?
Because he's showed up so consistently to his guitar, and he has a, indomitable spirit, and
Mhm.
he just approaches everything with such fullness. And I've always really looked up to him because he just is just positive facing forward, showing up.
Yeah.
His way of approaching the world is really inspiring because he does show up, but he doesn't have a tight control grip on things. And I think because of his demeanor, he's someone people want to be around. You know, he's not too intense. He's not forcing stuff. And I think in LA, that's a tough line to walk because your job is to exploit people for their connections. And that's kind of a gross thing to be doing, but you have to do that in order to not seem like a total, opportunist or kind of like a snake,
Yeah. So
he does it well.
For me, the failure that led to growth has been my life. And I love that I'm committed to growth. I'm committed to growth in all the best ways. And what it's culminated in, or what it's, just what it has. And I say culmination as if it's the end of my life. No, it's not. But it's in this space, what it means now is I can still learn at a high level. I can still study neuroscience and religion and just the mind and the brain and the body and all the things that are interesting to me at the time. But I can also comfortably sit in a room that I've, curated for myself and listen to Mozart, with perfect lighting and my perfect almost nothing outfit.
I love that.
And perfect sense and just enjoy the moment. So I think I want my life to have an undercurrent of comfortable in my skin. I'm not achieving from the space of I'm not enough, or I don't have enough, or there's something else to conquer. I'm doing it because that's what I want to do with my time right now. This is fulfilling for me. And it's going to serve someone well once I'm done with this, whether it's myself, whether it's my family, or whether it's a perfect stranger. Someone's going to be served well. And then I can leave that thing alone and go on to the next thing. When I'm done, and go on to the next thing, but not from a place of, I got to do this, like to prove that I'm amazing, to prove to you that I'm valuable or worthy. It's just, and she also painted this amazing,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, and she also wrote this amazing book. And she also has an amazing marriage. And she also has made each one of her grandchildren feel like they were the only person in the world and she loved them the absolute most. And she also, you know what I mean? I want that to be said about me, not from, it's just the way it is. And I feel like there's a thing about mastery. And when we talk about mastery, I'm thinking about mastery of self. Not mastery of a thing, just mastery of self. And we talked about that last week. Just mastering who we are and then just getting comfortable in that. And then I feel like all those other things come. Opportunities to showcase how amazing you are without you feeling like you're a performance bunny or, a performance horse, like it's just, this was amazing. And people have this wonderful experience with you because you weren't performing. You were just there lighting up the room as is natural for you.
So this actually segues perfectly into our life focus question, which is redefining success and embracing setbacks. So
because we've both done that, right?
Yeah. Well, what you're saying when you say that quality of making someone feel like they're the only person in the room, that is a quality I've always admired. And that is
Mhm.
a quality that I've always aspired to have. So to go more specifically into life setbacks. So specifically, my entire failure resume of sort of hiding in the wings and never really putting myself out there. I actually did take a risk one time, and that was I always wanted to be a musician, but I got really tied up into alcohol and drug abuse as because I saw that as part and parcel with musicianship, crazily enough. So when I would go and play with different bands
I
in the
can see
city
that.
over the years, yeah, because it is glamorized. Like you think, oh, musician, that means I need to get completely blackout and destroy a hotel room. The particular people I was looking at in the 60s and 70s were really living a life of excess. And I thought that that was
Mhm.
part of the identity of being a musician. So, but without realizing that other people around me were not doing it to that extent. So
Mhm.
when I was in this one band in the city in my earlier 20s, everybody else, yeah, they were drinking beers, but me and the other resident alcoholic were drinking Cavassier straight out of the bottle. Why? Why were we blackout on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Tuesday. And
Tuesday?
Tuesday, blacking out. Like I would be blackout. I would be taking the train home, no memory of that. Ordering a fish sandwich from the Burger King and in the basement subway station. It was like, what are you even doing? You've never ordered a fish sandwich in your life. Why are you waking up at
Mhm.
your chain stop with these fish sandwich wrappers? Like, what is going on here? Everybody else just had a couple beers and they just went home, and you are completely blotto. But I think it's because I was trying to overcome the insecurity of hitting a wrong note on the keyboard. Or the
Yeah.
insecurity that what was coming out of my mouth wasn't going to sound amazing. So all you have to do is that this is why I think sometimes musicians do this, because it's a way to force letting go of your inhibitions. That's what drunkenness
Mhm.
is, it's an artificial chemical way to be uninhibited. So I fell into that so hard, and then many years of doing that later, I did eventually learn to play music, and I sang and played keyboard in a band. And with my band, and my band is incredible, the band I'm still in that we still play whenever we can, we did make an album, and I actually did take a risk with that. I ended up doing a
Mhm.
Kickstarter campaign when I lived in LA. I remember starting it while living at Uncle Bob's house, and Uncle Bob was the first contributor. And I raised whatever, I think $5,000 or $10,000 to make this album. And we did. And we went to the Tenderloin of San Francisco. We recorded at this place called Hyde Street Studios, which was a place where Jimi Hendrix has recorded, and the Grateful Dead. And it was this really cool kind of 70s sound. And we recorded the album there. And I was really, really, really proud of that album. But I was such a mess when we were recording it. Remember, I told you Dan would come back into the control room being like, this is dope. Everything he does is dope. And I was just
Yes.
falling apart at the seams. So I couldn't actually inhabit this amazing moment that I had created for myself. But
Yes.
and isn't that sucks, because little Miss Perfectionist was still alive and kicking in there, ruining my time. That little
Yeah.
bee,
Yeah.
that little bee. So it's like, that person followed me and followed me and followed me, and now I'm almost 30, and I'm can't shake that girl, that mean girl. That she's mean, she's wounded, but it's like that mean voice. She wasn't mean, but she had a mean voice that was talking to her all the time. So
Mhm.
anyway, I was really, really, really proud of that album. My band is incredible, and I'm proud of what we did. But then when it came time to market it, it just fell flat. Because I had run out of steam tearing my hair out over the
Yeah.
fundraising and the making of the music and the stress of creating the album. Once it came time to market it, I still just didn't go for the gold. And if I had
Yeah.
not been burning up energy foolishly with my anxiety and my control issues and my everything, I think I would have been in a better position to keep the train moving. But it was like everything I
Mhm.
did, I was just a firework. And then it just went up just like too hot and too fast, and then
Yeah.
just crashed. So that was the one time I actually really did put myself out there, in the sense that I fundraised and I asked people for money and I asked people for support, and we did it. But then we just let it sit there forever. Like, it is on Spotify, but we never marketed it, so it never went anywhere. And then
Mhm.
I was kind of back at square one, and we still are a band and we still have lots of songs, and I do in many ways consider that to be one of the greatest successes. Like, me and Dan were just talking this morning about how every time we get back together, it's just there's some type of magical something here. So the fact that
Mm.
I obviously on some level found this thing that was magical and decided that I was worth it to keep that thing. And I have held on to that thing. And we've been together for like 15 years now, this band. So
Wow.
that to me is still a success, because even though we didn't have commercial success and it was our own fault, we never tried to make it go anywhere. But I feel so successful in terms of how much fulfillment I get and still get with that band. But then my next biggest failure was the dumpster fire that my life became because of my descent into addiction. So I think that's why it's really easy to say that up until the age of 34, I was just going downhill, going downhill, going downhill. And I was a mental health disaster, and I was a humanitarian disaster in the fact that I just could not keep relationships with people. I couldn't connect with people, and I just was so consumed with self. I heard this speaker say, depression, like she said, my kind of depression. She's not talking about people with clinical depression. She's like, my kind of depression, in the sense that all I can think about is me all the time, just me. That's the type of depression that I had too. So of course you're unhappy if you're only thinking about yourself all the time. So when that crashed and burned, that was the greatest failure in my life. But then that turned into the greatest success in my life, because when I hit my limit of self-destruction and decided to make a choice to live in a different way, that was the beginning. So that was the pivot. So now what you were saying about just wanting to be the type of person who makes everybody feel like they're so special, that's a quality I want to have. And now, because I've gotten rid of all the other garbage that was holding me back and holding me down, I can actually make that choice to say, I think I'm going to cull that thing and I'm going to become that thing. So my new life that I've built, that is a life of service to others and kindness to myself, is my greatest achievement. And it came from my biggest failure. So in a sense, I kind of did salvage the shipwreck, because even though I never followed the traditional trajectory of failure, which is to try and then fail and then learn, that would have been the best. But because I was consumed with fear and hiding on the sidelines, I never did any of that. But then because of all of that fear, I still ended up driving my life into the ground anyway, and then having to pick myself up from there and learn a lot of lessons about what not to do. But it just culminated so slowly over decades of self-loathing and self-destruction. And so I guess in a way, even though I'm just coming into myself now in my 40s, I feel that feeling of limitlessness. I feel that I've redefined success for myself, because now I decide and I trust myself, and I am making these decisions about who I want to be and who I want to be in the world and how I want to impact the world from a clear head. And then also this podcast is the thing that gives me, I don't want to say the most joy, because that would be shared with my kids and my family and my friends and all the things, that are enriching my life, but it's right up there. This is something I'm in love with, and I'm in love with everyone who listens and who takes the time to come together with us. And that makes me feel like we are in a community together, and that's just so priceless to me, because I've always wanted to make some type of contribution, but also I just was always too scared to do something like that. So to be able to just show up for something and to try to create something that we're proud of, and I am proud of it, and I'm also just, I don't know, I feel grateful, and I feel like a connection with people even if I don't know them. You know what I mean? It's just weird.
I was just about to say that. No,
I feel so connected with whoever you are, I'm so centered and grounded in that, and I know that there's something here and that there's something powerful, even though you can't touch it. And I don't know, it's making me feel something I've never felt before, and that's making my life. So whoever you are who's listening, thank you, because it's like elevating me to these new planes of existence that I just have never imagined.
And I want to double down on that connectedness piece. So I recently learned that connectedness was the answer to addiction. It's not
Yes.
sobriety. It's not like the reason the 12 steps programs work is because you're in a simulated family of people who are
Yes.
supporting you, that are welcoming you with open arms. No one's judging you, right? And so,
Mhm.
because we've all been there in our own ways. And so, this connectedness piece, when you were talking about looking at life, looking outside of your life from this standpoint of not enough or not good enough or fear, I think that comes from that thinking of yourself. But I feel like the areas of my life that I've been able to achieve on the highest levels has been when I was never thinking about myself, when I was only thinking about, well, for me, mine was my children, right?
Yes.
But now that has expanded. Now that my children are adults and they're independent and they're going through, you have some that are going through their individual life. Well, they're all going through their individual life journeys, but different levels, right? But I still have this way, that vision of, I'm doing this for my children has expanded a little bit to my outside of my nuclear family, to my extended family, and then even to the world. Like, what kind of messaging, having recently done and attended a funeral, I'm thinking of what kind of messaging. We've heard people talk about the dash, like the dash is everything you do with your life between your birth and your death. And what would I want said, and everything that's in that obituary and everything that's spoken about you in that funeral service is a summary of the dash. And
Mm.
what do I want my summary of the dash to be? And so yesterday, hanging with my friend, she said that she's in this new place. Now, what I love about her is she's almost 60, beautiful and amazing. And she said, I'm thinking about, and she has been on television. She's been viral multiple times and all these things. So she's achieved some major successes in her life. And she's thinking, what does this next version of myself look like? How does she approach the world? How does she dress? How does she see the world? How is she impacting the world? And then she's starting to take on all those things that the idea of the next version of her, postmenopausal and deep in marriage and welcoming grandchildren in the world, and how much do I want to work, how much do I want to, like, how hard do I want to go. And she's literally creating the life every single day that she wants to see as she ages and transitions out of here. How
Mm.
cool is that? If
So
you're not
cool.
doing that, what the heck are we doing?
Yep.
So it's like, but I believe that the key to it is taking your eye off self and putting it on, what am I here to do? Who am I here to serve? Whose life am I here to impact? And then what do I need to do that successfully?
Yep.
That kind of channels your energy properly, takes your mind off of you, your lack, even your greatness sometimes, because you saying you're great doesn't matter, but when you're operating at your highest levels and other people say you're great, that's pretty cool. You know? And so it just allows you to be able to show up in life in the way that best serves not only you, but the people that are around you. And if that's not living, what are we doing? If we're not
Yeah.
living like that, then what are we doing? So I just think that that's me redefining success and embracing setbacks. It's like the mistakes you've made them. You know what I mean? And all of them were integral to you becoming this person that we all know and love today. That's what'll be
Right.
said about you in your dash. Like, I thought about being at the funeral, and I was wondering, I was thinking about the times that my little brother has not been so nice. No one said anything about that, not anyone. And then I was like, is it inauthentic? I'm literally thinking, because the logical mind is going, right? And I'm thinking, we're not even, it doesn't even matter about the times that you weren't your best. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the times that you made me laugh till I felt like I was going to bust a gut. We're talking about the silly things we did, the fun things we did, the times you showed up for me and other people. That's what's going to be said. So if you can just do a whole lot of that, even your mistakes they're shadowed.
We could be selfish. Spend the summer nights on the rooftop. We could be living, staying up late until the moon drops. We could be gone winning all around the world, baby. Non-stop.
I think that's a both and too, because at least for me, all the times when I was not my best self and that I lived in that self-pity especially has made an imprint of what I don't want to be. So if something does happen to me, I don't want to, there's this expression I heard recently, sit in my wet diaper for too long.
Yes.
Because that doesn't serve me. If I need to be there for a little bit, okay, but you can't sit in your wet diaper forever. And I have learned that by sitting in my wet diaper forever. That's what I used to do. I just used to be like, woe is me. And there's this expression, pour me another drink. That's what self-pity is. Self-pity is just feeling like, you don't have the power to change even if you can't change your circumstances, you can change your outlook. So I want to embrace, in the way that I have gone through a lot of the wrong ways of doing things, I've learned through doing things the wrong way how to do it the right way. So even there's, I hope when I die, I hope people see me as a whole person. I hope they see all the mistakes and all the successes as part and parcel of each other, because I don't think they can exist. It's that yin yang thing again. I don't want to necessarily be only remembered as, in a way, I don't want to only be remembered as the good, because my whole life was just a struggle to only be good. So what I would actually rather have is for someone to also see the negative and love me anyway. I think that's better. So when you say like, oh, the times when BJ wasn't his best, like the whole thing is like, even though he wasn't his best, he was still family and we still loved him. And then also look at all the, the belly laughs and the this and then that. And so to me, the success is the love that allows you to take the both and wholeheartedly bring those both in, so that, especially in my relationship, I was just talking with somebody else about how our partner just sees the absolute worst of us. I would never speak to a friend. Things I say to him, it's just like my guard is down. I'm tired. I'm whatever. And then like something about that partner just sets you off. Like I go straight back to adolescence with this MF. So it's like that's what's, I think, so great though about having a partner is like this person has seen the absolute worst of me. So I can idealize other people all day, but this person knows who I am at the most base level. And this poor chap loves me anyway.
With no makeup, with the bonnet.
Yeah, so there's something really successful to me about coming as you are, and also accepting other people as they are, and meeting people where they're at. And so there's all this gray area in between there. So I'm really glad you said that. Oh, and I found it. The quote, this is, sorry to be abrupt, I just found this quote about the school thing that I was saying about redefining success and how I don't want my children getting locked into this idea of feeling like they need to be perfect in everything. So she says, my dad didn't give an S about school. He was the total opposite of any parent you'd ever meet. In 10th grade, I was stressed out studying for a test, and he asked, can't you find a copy of the test so you can cheat or stay at home from school and study more? He did not care about grades. He felt that a combination of social ability, street smarts, understanding how to make a buck, asking people questions, being charming, and showing an interest in others would get you a lot further in life than academic achievement.
Ooh.
Those things, this hit me like a bullet between the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Social ability, street smarts, don't get that in school. Understanding how to make a buck, don't get that in school. Asking people questions, being charming, and showing an interest in others. Those are the things that I want in my life, and those are the things I developed at a later age. You know, you can't show an interest in others when you're totally consumed in self. So much of my success in my life has been moving beyond self, getting out of my own way. Every ounce of freedom that I enjoy today has to do with not being stuck in the bondage of self. At least, you know, most of the time I get stuck in the bondage of self on the daily for shorter periods of time though, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love that. I love the way that you're redefining success for yourself, but I especially love that you're going to add this new piece of the structure where actually you're not operating from a place of lack, but you have this stable baseline where you're doing everything from a place of abundance and joy. And that thing that you were talking about with Total You, where you're just, it's whatever else comes out of the cup. That's your offering. The cup is full. So whatever spills out, that's what you have to give, you know?
Yeah. And just showing up as my best self everywhere I can, like, and but not in a performance way.
To the best of your ability.
To the best of my ability, but not performing.
Right. And just to show up, I think just to show up real is the best thing.
Yeah. I don't want to look what I could do, because I did that for many years. And that was seeking approval. And a lot of times when you're doing that, the fact that you're not getting the approval should tell you you're never going to get it from the person you're seeking it from. Just be. So it goes back to being. It goes back to becoming. It goes back to just being comfortable in your own skin and doing what feels absolutely right to you in the moment and doing it to the best of your ability. I love embracing this idea of excellence, but not from performance, not from busyness, just because, I think I could. Just say if you were making a dish for someone and someone said they were hungry, and it's like, what's the best thing that I can go in here and create that would be simple? And if I just wanted to feed a friend on a moment's notice, it would probably be the recipe that we talked about last week, my vegetable scramble. Because it's going to be really, really good, really, really filling, really, really easy to make. And it's going to give you that love, that warm and fuzzy feeling without feeling overstuffed. And it's not going to be such a time crunch on me or a time suck on me that I can't enjoy our time together. Right?
So this is actually the perfect segue into recipes now that you mentioned your scramble.
Yes.
So our recipe today is recovery meal, dish that salvages seemingly ruined ingredients. You want to hit me with something like that?
So this is weird, but the only thing I could think of is when I'm making a dish. So a lot of dishes that I make require me to boil meat. And whenever I boil meat, I always say your dish is only as good as your stock, right? And I don't prefer to use a store-bought stock. As often as I can, I want to save my own stock, freeze it, you know what I mean? And use it for later. And so say if I was going to make like, just say if I wanted a chicken salad, but because I love the way my boiled chicken tastes. I know this is weird. I love the way the flavor of my boiled chicken is so good that one of the best things is for me to do is to take that. Say if I was making, I don't know, chicken tostadas today, right? I would like to save some of the boiled chicken for a salad tomorrow, right? But the thing is, the stock had nothing to do with anything. The stock was just a consequence of me having to boil chicken for the tostadas. But I will turn around and put that stock in the freezer, and that's like the base of an amazing soup later. And that is the only thing I can think of. It's not destroyed, but it really should have been something that should have been thrown away because it was inconsequential to what I was making in the moment, right? But now that it's done, it's like, well, why would I waste this amazing broth when I can use it later? And I just believe that my broth whether it's beef or chicken, it's just better than the store-bought stuff because the store-bought stuff is really high in sodium, and
Yeah.
mine is high in flavor and not sodium.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. And so that's one thing. And the only other thing that's coming to mind for me is, and I know because I'm going to bring some meat into the conversation, Jen.
That's okay.
Back in the day, when we used to make like a holiday ham, my mom used to save the ham bone because we didn't have like boneless hams. We had the ham with the bone. And my mom would save that ham bone and freeze it and make beans later. That's why I'm such a bean lover, because her beans were so good. But she would save that bone and make great northern white beans or red beans or pinto beans, and they were so good with that, made from the ham bone. So those are my two thoughts on something that can be made from, seemingly, trash ingredients.
Yeah. So you actually touched on mine, so mine's going to be super fast, but I tend to make chicken a lot because the family eats chicken, and it's easy to overcook chicken breast. It's just really tough. It's not very flavorful, and usually I would do thighs, but if I do breast, sometimes it gets overcooked in spite of my best intentions. And what I'll do, and it can even be so good when you're first eating it, but then in the fridge the next day it's not that great kind of, or if you have to reheat it, it gets overcooked. So if I don't do it perfectly and if it ends up dry, what I usually just end up doing is chicken salad. So you already touched on it. If I have chicken that is not really working solo, what I'll do is I'll just chop it all up, or I'll shred it if I can with my fingers, and then I'll just throw in a bunch of mayo, so it's adding that moisture back into it. And then I like mine and Herschel loves it, and he'll take it for sandwiches, and I like to add a lot of crunchy stuff to it. So sometimes I'll add onions, pickles, sometimes I'll add carrots, and I do just salt, pepper, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Then I'll just throw that onto some toast. Usually we'll do American cheese, and then, me, I like a lettuce, tomato, onion on top of there too. And then Herschel adds extra mayo, if you can believe that. It's already packed with mayo, but it must be nice to never gain weight even if you try.
Right?
Like he can eat mayo all day long. Yeah. So that's mine. That's what I would do if I had ruined chicken, and that's it. That's what we got.
So,
and I do want to add just one more closing note. So last week I made a mistake. So talking about failure resumes, and I lied about something, and I am not a liar by nature. Like lying is not one of my things.
On a podcast, No, I'm just kidding.
I spin. I don't lie. You know what I do? So Herschel was one time, he's like, you lie all the time. And I was like, what? Have you ever met me? I was like, have you ever met me? Like, honestly, I have zero filter. You've heard the things I say on this podcast. Like,
right.
Just last week, I was like, yeah, I made myself puke all the time. Like, that's freaking embarrassing. If I lied all the time, I would not, I'm pretty no filter. But what he means is I exaggerate, right? And I can also spin.
Okay.
Yeah, so exaggerating is it, and I have found through editing the podcast that I certainly am guilty of that.
That's
when I said
hilarious.
Yeah, I hear it. I actually didn't realize it was true until I was editing, and then I had said at my friend Sarah's birthday party, I was like, oh, if like 50 extra people showed up, we would have been good food-wise. And then I was listening back, and I was like, really, Jen? 50? You could have stuck with 10, 20, but you chose to go 50? Like, that's ridiculous. So yes, I am guilty of exaggerating. I certainly can spin. I mean, I'm articulate, and I tend to say things to, leverage my point of view. I think I'm only human, right? But this was a blatant lie. I lied, and that is so not like me. Like, lying is not one of my things, and it was burning me up. Like, I was freaking out because it was just weighing on me because it's just not one of my things. I have a lot of other things, but that's not one of them. So I was losing it, and I needed to talk to somebody, and in the process of waiting for me to talk to her, my spiritual advisor, because I did not know what to do. I was vacuuming the ceiling. I was like going after the dust in the vents on the ceiling because I was so anxious. I was anxious cleaning, which is also something I never do because it's just, I wasn't living up to my own standard of myself. It is my standard. If I was okay with lying, then that would be fine, but I'm not okay with lying, and it's just not in my character to lie. And But for some reason, my solution was like, well, I've got to take this to my grave. I don't know why,
Too
but then I
funny.
know, still making the wrong decision. I can be crazy like that. So I knew I needed to talk to this person to set me straight, because I just need someone else sometimes to just set my thinking straight when I'm going crazy and I can't figure something out. And she just said, she's like, you have to correct it. You have to tell the truth. And this is what I love so much about being in recovery, is that there's these incredibly simple things that when it is burning you up because you did the wrong thing and it's sitting wrong with you and it's weighing on your conscience, there's this step. It's called step 10. And it just says, when you are wrong, you promptly admitted it. That's it. When you were wrong.
Not if. So it's going to happen.
It will, of course, happen, and I'll do it again. It might not be lying. It might be something else. It might be lying. But the thing is, it was really burning me up, and I knew it was not aligned with my values. And so she just said, you have to come clean and you have to correct it. And that is step 10, is when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. And it's such a simple thing, but it really works. So right away, promptly, as soon as I could and as soon as I had the opportunity, I spoke to the person and I said, listen, I lied. And that was painful. That was hard.
Yeah.
That was hard to say.
Hard.
But right after I said it, I felt the most incredible weight lifted. I felt the most incredible liberation after that, because I had been carrying this horrible toxic thing that was just polluting my entire energy sphere. And then I just let it go, just for the small ticket price of having a nick to my own ego.
To yourself, because no one else knows, which is awesome.
Right. So case in point, I think I am getting to a place where I am allowing myself to make mistakes and then also learning from them, and it's okay to make mistakes.
But doesn't it also go back to that thing we spoke about a couple weeks ago, where when someone does that, you think as the offender, you think it's a nick to my self-esteem or my ego, and the other person is like, you know what, I respect you a little bit more for that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went down.
You can't help but
actually,
respect the person.
Exactly.
So,
it is just like when someone apologizes.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I recently had to apologize to someone that I wronged many, many years ago, but I've never seen the person. And I always said, even though it was a hard thing, because I know I did something kind of abhorrent to the person. But it was back in the day, when I was still kind of I was still in my kind of lack mindset, right? Where I was leaning on, where I would kind of do something scammy. I wouldn't ever, the last 15 years wouldn't ever do anything like that. But it was kind of like that thing. And I've never saw this person again. And when I saw the person, I had to say, hey, can we just step to the side and I'd like to talk to you. May I talk to you just for a moment? And you can tell the person didn't want to. They wanted nothing to do with me and haven't for many, many years, like almost 2 decades, And then, but what happened was I said, I just need you to hear my heart right now. And I wronged you. I mishandled you. And there is no excuse for what I did. I was just wrong. And I am very, very sorry. And I was just looking her square in her eyes. And she teared up and she was like, I accept your apology. I thought she was going to slap me in my face, because when you're mad at someone for 20 years, you know what I mean? You probably deserve the slap in the face. And I was ready for that, braced myself for that. But she hugged me.
That's beautiful.
You can't help but respect the person that can humble themselves. So if you have lasted with us this long, again, I'm going to let you know that you are our people, and I heart you. I heart you. Okay. This is Betina and Jen signing off once again for the What's the Temp podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Be great on purpose.
Have a great 24. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
We could be selfish. Standing so nice on the rooftop. We could be living. Staying up late until the moon drops. We could be gone winning. All around the world, baby. Non-stop. It's you or me. We could do it all. And it's all love. socialist. We could be falling in love.